Hi everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout that I made using the April My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit. And this kit featured a really beautiful collection from 49 and Market, which is one of my favorite manufacturers. And the collection is called Art Options Avesta. I love this beautiful coral and green combination. And today I'm using this beautiful paper. It has a line of butterflies going down the left-hand side. So I am kind of cutting a frame in the middle, but I'm leaving all of the butterflies intact and attached to the outside that is becoming the frame. And now I'm fussy cutting around all of those butterflies. And I plan to put some more pattern paper in the center, and that's where my photo and all of my embellishments will go. As I was cutting out the butterflies, I cut out a really little tiny piece of paper that really needed to be there. So I just taped a piece of paper back in there again, and I don't think it's noticeable at all. And then I continued fussy cutting out all of these beautiful butterflies, but again, leaving part of them attached to the left-hand side. In order to figure out where to cut, I could have just measured, but for me, it was a little easier to have a template. So I cut a piece of scrap green cardstock into an 8x8 inch square, and then I centered that on the back of the pattern paper. I traced around it, and then that let me know where I should cut my frame. And then I wanted to have a white mat between the frame that I made and the pattern paper I was going to put behind it. So you probably saw earlier, I traced around the inside of the frame that I made with the butterflies, and then that let me know how big the opening was, so I could cut it just a little bit smaller, the opening just a little bit smaller, and I did that with my trimmer. And then I cut another piece of pattern paper to go behind the mat. Now I'm using some Distress ink in Vintage Photo, and I'm inking the edges of the paper. I go all the way around the frame and around the butterflies, and then I do the same thing to the mat. And I will actually do this to most of the embellishments that I put on the layout. I just like the way it gives a cohesive look, and I think the Vintage Photo goes really well with this particular collection. And I don't think the Vintage Photo goes with every collection. It goes with a lot of them, but it worked out really well with the tones that are in this collection. So after I was done inking the edges, I attached together the frame and the mat, and I just used some ATG adhesive for that. I want to be really careful about how I place the frame on the mat. I want to make sure that the same amount of paper is showing on all four sides. And then I attach the piece of pattern paper to the back, and the other side of this paper is so beautiful too. And I could have cut the paper a little bit larger, but I like to save every little bit of this paper that I can, so I just used some Scotch tape and attached that back piece of pattern paper to the mat. I chose a number of embellishments to go on the page, and then as I said, I'm inking all of them with the Distress ink. And these embellishments come from the laser cuts that were in the kit, also the ephemera pack, and a couple of pieces were fussy cut out from some of the pattern papers. This is the very last piece. This piece is very delicate, but I was able to ink the edges without causing any of the leaves to fall off. So the photo that I'm going to use is a picture of both of my daughters, and we were at a place in Philadelphia called the Magic Garden, or Magic Gardens. I'm not sure if there's an S on there or not, but in any case, I had quite a few photos taken right at this same spot, and so I wasn't worried about cutting this one down. I thought that it fit really well in this little frame, and I thought that the background matched well with all of the embellishments. Once I had attached the photo to this little frame, I used some fun foam to give it a little bit of extra dimension. And you can see here that I'm piecing together a lot of little scraps that I had left over from some other projects. Now I'm using this piece of ephemera to back this frame. I thought that this would be a nice layering piece to put the frame on. So I'm going to put that frame on the right-hand side. There's also this beautiful, it's not a full wreath, but it looks like a wreath. I'm putting that to the left, and that is another layer that I think will look nice right behind the frame that the photo is on. So I attach that down, and then I begin using those leaves and some tickets as well to embellish around the frame. And then one of the nice things about using the ATG adhesive is it allows me to move things around, and I very frequently do move things around. Sometimes it's hard to figure out exactly where you want to place things until you get all the other items placed down as well. For example, I was able to pull up the frame and the wreath and layer a postcard behind it. I'm adding some tickets to the right of the photo, and I love tickets. There were lots of tickets in this 49 Market ephemera pack that we got in the kit. The title is going to be Delightful, and that's another thing that was in the ephemera pack. There were lots of titles, and I love having titles in the ephemera packs and the die cut or the laser sheets. I really like it when they're pre-made, so I don't have to think too much. And so I thought Delightful was a nice title for this layout. So I'm adding that at the bottom of that large frame. There were also some tabs in the ephemera pack, so I'm placing the tab at the top of the layout. I'm going to put my date on that. And then I begin adding some flowers. I put 2 fussy cut flowers, one on either side of the title. And I am adding some of the leaves. In some cases, the stems were a little bit longer than I needed them to be, so I cut them short, and then I saved the leaves and I put those on other parts of the layout. And I love adding leaves to my layouts, so it's very rare that I feel that I have enough leaves, but I definitely did have plenty when you combine all the different die cuts and ephemera pieces that we got in this kit. There were definitely plenty for me to make the layouts that I made. I added a flower in the upper right hand corner, and that doesn't stay there. I end up putting some pearls in the corners, but I have the flower there for a little bit. I also put a bow at the top, and that doesn't stay there either, although it does stay on the layout, but I don't leave it where I put it right now. And here you could see that I'm making use of every one of those leaves. I'm tucking them into a couple of different places on the layout. There was a sentiment that says, love you forever and ever. And I place that on the left-hand side of the layout. I kind of thought I wasn't going to leave it there. I'm not sure why I attached it down, but I do end up moving it, but it does stay on the layout. Once again, I use the distress ink in the vintage photo, and this time I stamped the date on that tab at the top. And now I'm going to be adding some smaller butterflies to the layout. I'm putting some fun foam behind the wings, and that will help the butterflies' wings to pop up a little bit. These butterflies do end up moving around the layout a little bit, but they do stay on the layout as well. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Magic Gardens in Philadelphia. It's this beautiful place, and the person who created it just covered the entire house, inside, outside, with mosaics. And it's so pretty. And the girls were standing against this beautiful wall that was just sparkling in the sunlight. And I just love working with the pictures that we took there. I have a lot of them, and I have a lot left to scrap. So you might see more of them in the future. Kind of fussing around with the tickets that were in the ephemera pack. There were lots of them, and they had them in lots of different colors. I'm tucking 2 of them, one on top of each other, on the right-hand side of the layout. I don't think that I realized that this postcard and everything on top of it wasn't attached down, so I added some ATG adhesive to the back of the postcard. And I'm continuing to play around with those leaves. I'm putting adhesive on them, but of course I can't resist making sure that I like the direction that each one is going in, and just kind of futzing around with them as I attach them down. And then I didn't include all the footage of me gluing everything down, but I do attach down all of the ephemera pieces to the layout. And now I'm going to add some pearls, which I love to add to my layouts. I start out with some rather small but relatively larger pearls for the heads of the large butterflies. And then I use some strips, they're adhesive strips, of very tiny, I think 3mm pearls for the rest of the butterflies. And for those very small butterflies, I just put 2 pearls on each of those. On the small frame that I have my photo behind, I noticed that there was an image of something metal on the top and the bottom, and I looked in my stash and I found that I had some brads that looked very similar to that image. So I thought that since I had them, I would add them and it would add just a little bit more dimension. They weren't really necessary, but I thought they would add a little something to the layout. I moved the title a little bit to the left. I just thought it looked too kind of squished in the right-hand corner. And then I started to rearrange the top of the layout. I took off that long sentiment and then I moved a flower over from the corner. I added another flower and then I kept that very small butterfly for the center of the top of the frame. I cut that long strip that said love you forever and ever into 3 separate shorter pieces. I thought that would work a little bit better on this layout. And then I used some fun foam and I popped up each one of the parts and then I placed them to the left of the photo. And I think that they look much better in those smaller pieces. Now I add some pearls to the corners of the layout. I am using a larger pearl on each corner and then 2 smaller pearls, one on either side of that larger pearl. And I think that just gives almost a little bit of a photo corner effect to the pearls, and I think it adds a nice little finishing touch. Not that I'm done with the layout yet. I have a couple more things that I would like to do. I don't have too many things popped up on this layout. I was thinking though that the flowers at the top of the layout, those would look nice with a little bit of dimension. I don't have too many things popped up on this layout. I have the title and I have the photo popped up and I also have that sentiment popped up. I was thinking that it would look nice to have the flowers at the top of the page, have a little bit of dimension, so I added some foam behind those. I love to add branches and little floral touches to my layout. There wasn't any yellow on this layout. There is some yellow in the collection, but since my layout didn't have any yellow and I know that it looks really nice with this collection, I thought that I would add some stems that were colored in fossilized amber. And then after I covered them with the fossilized amber, I went around the edges and I inked them with the Distress ink. And I just like the way that adds a little bit of dimension to these die cuts. They're not just a flat color. So I tuck those in a number of places around the layout. I'm mainly concentrating them near the frame that holds the photo and in that general area. I also put a few at the top of the layout in a little bit by the flowers that I popped up just a little while ago. And I really like the way the yellow looks on the layout, and I'm glad that I added a small touch of it. I was thinking that this would be the last thing that I did to the layout, but then I remembered that I have seen some scrapbookers add little trails to the back of the butterflies and then stitch them. So I thought I would do the same thing. I thought that this layout could use a little bit of stitching. So I used a pencil and I lightly drew in some swirly trails. And this is very good quality paper, so I was able to erase and redraw some of the lines, but I would be careful about doing that on some scrapbook papers because some of them erasing the paper will remove the color. Well, it took me a little bit of time to get those lines drawn just the way I wanted them, but then once I did, I was going to punch some holes, and then I was thinking that I wanted to switch out one of the tickets for one of these yellow tickets. So I inked the edges of the ticket and then I exchanged one of the orange tickets for this yellow ticket. And then I got out my paper piercing tools and I punched some holes along each of those butterfly trails that I had drawn. And then off camera, I stitched them using some white embroidery thread. And then I was thinking that there are no antennae on these butterflies, so I used a thin brown marker and I added some. I added a few more florals to that top cluster. And then I was thinking that this layout was almost done. It just needed some white splatters. So I used some watered down white acrylic paint and I of course covered my photo first so that I didn't get paint all over it. And I'm just adding some splatters, mainly around the area where I have the photo and that whole large cluster. I clean up a couple of white splatters that I didn't like, and that completes this layout. Here are some close-ups. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I love working with these beautiful 49 and Market collections. If you would like to check out this month's limited edition kit and any of the other kits that are available, there are 4 different kits available each month. You can check out the My Creative Scrapbook website. You can view all the kits and purchase one there. The link is in the description box. I hope that you have a great day, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.